Hello, everyone. Welcome to Ask the Amigos. This is the show where we we don't ask anything, where we answer our Discord community's burning questions. We start things off with the one and only Ravi Abbott. He says, you had the Atari Jaguar and the Panther. Which animal do you think would be a cool name for a console?
I got one. Man, it came to me like a shot, all right? It's almost a West Virginia exclusive animal, right? How about the Atari Hellbender?
I don't know what that is.
You don't know what the Hellbender is? It's native to this state. It's super rare.
That was the Jersey Devil.
No. Why would the Jersey Devil be in West Virginia? It's Jersey's in the name.
That's true.
No. How many monsters do we need? This isn't a monster, it's a real creature. It's like a salamander or something. It's called Hellbender.
Mm-hmm.
It lives in creeks. I think mostly up north. They've got one at the Huntington Museum of Science or Art, whatever. They've got one down there that we've seen. But yeah, they're these cool. But I always thought the name was awesome, the Hellbender.
That is cool.
I mean, your churchy types might get a little offended, but I mean, I think it's cool. What about you?
I was thinking that most of the good names, let's be honest, have been taken. Most of the cool cat names. And do we want to go the other way on this? Do we want to say this is the ultimate, like for your cookie clicker types, the people that love to play sort of the games, the idle games? How about the Namco Sloth?
See, the sloth doesn't have positive connotations is the problem. So, I mean, what's a slow animal, but that's over? Like the koala, something like that.
You don't think the sloth is over?
The
sloth pretty over. I think people.
Well, if someone said boat, you're like a sloth. Is that you think? Do you find that a complimentary phrase?
Well, it's true.
That's all I'm saying.
I don't know if it's complimentary. Yeah. Koala is not bad.
If it was only like real slow games, that might work.
Yeah. Mr. Rocket asks, myths have spread about hidden or hard-to-find features in different games through the decades. For example, in Lunar Jetman, someone falsely claimed to have found a trailer that you could attach to your vehicle. What is your favorite mythical claim in a game, or did you ever boast to friends that you had discovered something in a game that didn't actually exist?
Yes, I've done that. It was Map Mania. And I've told everyone that would listen. There's a guy in the game called the Piranha. He's a mask guy, except they've misspelled it, so his real name's the Piranha. All right, I don't know why there's an extra I in there. Anyway, the Piranha's got a mask with a bunch of spikes on it, and in a fever dream, I was playing that game at the Big Bear Hills in Huntington, and he went up and came off the top rope with a headbutt in my dream. And I told everybody, listen, this guy does a headbutt. But he doesn't do a headbutt. I've never seen it once, and I've played that game more than anybody. So I would say that's one I accidentally spread around. The king of that is like the Mortal Kombat series. I mean, because you heard all the stupid crap, especially the first one, where they added some of the stupid crap that people talked about to the second one to make it to like realize and the third one, the stuff where you turn into animals and stuff. Those were all rumors from the first couple games. So when they added that, it was because they thought everyone could do it. So those are the two that come to mind. What about you?
Yeah, for me, I never made up anything. I remember, of course, when I was a kid, the big game was Super Mario Brothers, and there was always the people that said that they could jump over the flagpole at the end. There were whisperings about a negative world, and I swear that people came up. This is one of these weird things where I swear that I heard about the negative world before like Game Genie and all the things that let you access. Well, no, you could access the negative world without Game Genie. I don't know. I just feel like the negative world willed itself into existence.
Can't you also jump over the flagpole if you're like pixel perfect at one point? Isn't that a possibility?
I don't know if you can or not, to be honest with you. I'm sure that, but I know that when I got my Game Genie, that's the very first thing that I did was jump over the flagpole.
There's so much crazy stuff in that game naturally. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it showed me weird glitches that I'm not terribly surprised that one got spread around.
Yeah.
You know, because it is such a goofy game with a bunch of. I mean, that was an ambitious game when it came out. If you think about it.
Oh,
and
it was
so
the most
you would,
game. Yeah.
Yeah, and so you would just think to yourself, okay, well, absolutely, there's going to be a lot of glitching and stuff because it's like GTA or something. I mean, it's so vast, you know. There's going to be a. But yeah, I heard similar things, but I could have sworn that both those things you could do without a Game Genie. But
you could definitely get to the negative world. You can definitely get to the negative world without a Game Genie. I've done it.
I'm already in the negative world. I want to get out of here.
That's true. That's true. I want the game where you escape the negative world.
Positive world, please.
Is Too Scooby asks, what profession other than what you currently do interests you?
Go ahead, Boat. I'll let you do that one.
You know,
first.
I've been watching a lot of this guy on YouTube. His name's Joe Farah, and he's a merchant mariner. Okay. He goes on these cargo ships, and he goes all over the world. And he talks about his life, you know, working on the ship, working as a hand, all this stuff. And to be honest with you, I would never want to do that. It looks really hard. But I would want a job like the job that I have, sort of like being a sailor, where you have certain periods on and certain periods off. So I like, and when you're a teacher, you have this natural rhythm to your job where you work basically 10 months out of the year and you get 2 months off. I wouldn't, if I was going to choose another career, it would be really hard for me to give up that 2 months off thing. So I'd have to figure out a job that would allow me a certain amount of downtime. And to be honest with you, it would probably be something like being a tractor trailer driver or something like that, something where you log incredibly long hours for long stretches of time. But then when it's home time, it's home time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. It's it's a good question. I hesitate to call this a professional job, but I guess technically it is. But if I didn't do what I'm doing now, if I could start over back when I was younger, because it was a path I didn't take. And it was the path of from doing computer hardware to computer software and programming. I would love to be like a professional, like hacker, like an actual, like I've spent some of our vacation time watching stuff on hackers, and not only just your classic, your Mitnick types, but some more modern hacking that goes on. It's quite interesting here when these guys from a foreign country go in and shut down your water system or screw with your telecommunications or whatnot. And you know, these governments all have elite level hackers, you know, sequestered somewhere in a room. I think that would be an interesting way you could, but I will say I'll do the Mitnick era hackers have a lot more romantic interest to me because they're like your true, your pirate types. I mean, like buccaneers. I mean, like do what they want, take what they want. But that wouldn't fly professionally now. So a professional hacker, I'd like to have that kind of jack. To be honest with you, but so that would be something I would like to
be. I'd like to be. I guess you call them white hat hackers, where companies hire you to exploit, find and exploit weaknesses in their system. Yeah, that is something that is. I'm sure people are constantly in need of. I'm sure it pays well, and it's like a puzzle to solve. It's a sort of a fun exercise of the mind. Unfortunately, I have none of the mind that is required for a job like that.
See, I would not want to be a white hat. I'd want to be. That has no interest to me. I'd want to be the other guys that are actually infiltrated. Okay. Yeah, I want to be the bad guys. Yeah.
Okay. Is Too Scooby asks, what was the first instrument you learned to play?
Well, it depends on your definition of learning to play. The first thing I learned was the trumpet, and I was third chair. No, I was in the third section. And I was like that. I was not the top chair in the bottom rung, so I was like well down the ladder. And before ultimately they moved me to baritone, which I.
But then that's where you shone was when you.
Right, but no, it's just baritone's a much. I mean, listen, I'm just gonna call it what it is. It's a much easier instrument than trumpet. Trumpeters like top shelf, and you know this, Boat, and bugleists and whatnot. or they're all man or woman. Those instruments are difficult to play at a high level, in my opinion. And trombone is still I think one of the hardest instruments, as we discussed before. But I couldn't get anywhere near those. But the lip action you need to play trumpet was beyond my capabilities.
Yeah.
I guess my lips can't do it, but I could do the baritone.
Well, I agree with everything you said. I think that when I have a student that's struggling, it has nothing to do with their ability. It's just their physiological makeup of their lips. If they struggle with that high register, switching them to baritone is the right move, because they can have immediate success on the baritone. As far as the parts, also baritone parts are like trombone parts, like tuba parts, all the low brass. It's like when you're a composer, you're working your way from the top down. And you're like, man, I've got all these ideas. So you have like the flute and the clarinets, they get all the best ideas. And then the trumpets, they get almost the best ideas. Then you're working your way down through the sax. By the time you get to the low brass, you're like, man, it's time to throw in some whole notes. And that's what we get. So
the low brass is like that. Well, they're the bass guitar of the band.
That's right.
Except they often don't get as funky as the bass. Every once in a while, they throw the low brass a bone, but not often. Not often enough. What about you? What's the first thing you kicked in on?
All right. I had some audio trouble there. I don't know what's going on with my amp. Can you repeat that last thing that you just told me?
I said, what was the first thing that you learned?
The first thing that I learned was probably I took violin lessons when I was a real little kid. My dad, when I was in first grade, my dad used to drive me to Marshall to do this, and the method is called Suzuki. And I remember that they placed a lot of stock in like learning to hold the instrument properly. So we didn't even start out on a violin. We started out on a butter box that was taped to a paint stirrer. And they're like, if you're going to learn violin, you got to start on this. But after a while, I think that it was too much of a drive to drive down to Huntington once a week, down to Marshall. And so I didn't play any instruments until I joined band in 6th grade, and it was trombone all the way. So
did you ever take piano lessons back in the day?
No. Well, I took piano lessons when I was in high school, and I was thinking about majoring in music. I didn't take it seriously. I continued to not take piano seriously all through college, all through the required classes. And as a result, that's my biggest hole in my musical arsenal, is that my keyboard skills are pathetic for the job that I do. And I really regret not taking piano more seriously, especially because if I would have started when I was a kid, and if I could have gotten to high school and played Billy Joel and Elton John, you want to talk about getting the ladies. That's how you do it. Unfortunately, when you bust out chopsticks for them, they're less than impressed.
You can play Billy Joel on the trombone, though.
That's true. It loses a little something in translation. Ravi asks, what were the crazes at your school growing up?
Well, so I remember mostly fashion crazes, but so when Michael Jackson hit real big when I was in middle school. So a lot of people wore, and breakdancing too. So I've mentioned this before, we had parachute pants. And my buddy had an exact Thriller replica outfit he wore to school, which was hilarious because he was a geeky white dude with a white guy afro, and he looked like a complete doofus in this suit. And he got hassled really. I think we saw it wear him once. When I got to high school, the fashion statement du jour. Because this is when Madonna had kicked up. And I don't know how, I don't even remember Madonna doing this that much, but ripped up stuff. Or trash bag type stuff, too.
Trash bag stuff, eh?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But really, like, desecrated and destroyed outfits, jeans that were ripped off. It looked like one of the Moondogs had done the fashion. They were just ripped all to hell. And now that's one thing I didn't get involved in that one. And I just thoroughly looked stupid. I mean, people's pants would be hanging off the leg. I mean, it looked like they were had been stranded on a desert island. And I was like, what are you doing?
Well, it's funny because now distressed jeans are popular, but I think what they do, they don't cut them. It's not like the fabric is like hanging off of the side. They just make a big hole in it.
Yeah, nobody. No jeans today look like these because you couldn't buy these in the store. I mean, they were people. By the way, you couldn't buy any of this stuff in the store. Just like you remember acid wash jeans or the ones what are they called, the stone ones. I can't remember, but
stone wash.
That stuff. eventually those came out, but early on, people were just like, hey, let's see if bleach will work. Well, nope. So they'd come in with like bleached up pants, or stuff like that. And another thing, like one of my buddies, Red, he had jean jackets were a big deal, and he had one that the sleeves were all tattered in, and he had all kinds of band like pins on it. That was pins was another thing that was kind of a big deal. So a lot of people wore pins and stuff. When it comes to like non-fashion stuff, I mean, it's not like we were all walking around in the halls like a Rubik's Cube or something. It just didn't come up that much, if I'm honest. I mean, I remember when I was a little kid, people had those little stomper trucks or those little, like, the penny racers. People would bring those to school and jump them off sidewalks and crap. We used to pencil fight. I remember people bringing in big old pencils, like to fight each other, and sometimes they'd wrap, like I told you about the guy that wrapped a 10-penny nail up in tape and said it was a pencil, which is going through and just wrecking people. So that was something. But I mean, I think that, like the little paper things that you used to tell the future. I don't know if they still do that
Fortune
anymore.
tellers, yep.
And play paper football. We did that kind of crap at school, but it's not like we were coming in like, I take that back. There was one huge trend, which was ninjas. Flack would understand. So people came in with all sorts of throwing stars and with size and chucks and headbands and the whole 9 yards. That did get over. Everybody was looking at Asian World of Martial Arts, the old magazine where you could order all that stuff. So that was something else. So just off the top of my head, those are the ones I come up with.
Yeah, I just feel like maybe there weren't as many crazes in the 90s, or maybe I just wasn't aware. Because I was in 5th grade in 1990. So that's really like the youngest you can really be, I think, and being really involved in a craze of any kind. Because before then, you're just kind of putting on clothes your parents tell you to put on. And so I remember jean jackets. That was a huge, huge thing. I had one. I had a jean jacket. I had a skateboard. Everybody loved skateboards. And then I had a horrible skateboard. It was tiny. I think it was like a child's skateboard, but like for like a real little kid.
Like the real thin ones?
Yeah, real thin ones. Yeah. It didn't look cool at all. I didn't show it to my friends. Let's see. But other than that, like, I don't remember a lot of this. There were certain brands that were popular. Remember Starter, that brand? Yeah. They made like jackets and stuff like that. People love that. People love No Fear shirts. A lot of my crazes were just sort of like just awful, like corporate, like.
Remember Balls Out? Wasn't that a one?
Oh yeah,
and don't they have isn't there worldwide headquarters in Nitro and that them?
I think they used to be. I don't know that it's still there anymore. I think
I remember seeing the sign.
Yeah,
I was like,
think
wow.
the Balls Out has left the building. But,
of all the places.
I remember that there were the big Johnson shirts that kids would wear. Then the teachers would make them turn them inside out. Yeah. I mean, but my crazes are lame. They're nothing like your and Flack's crazes. You guys grew up in the peak of craze activity.
Well, I mean, listen, they had stuff like my kid was like fidget spinners. Those are a big deal.
Oh yeah, I can tell you all the crazes now.
Yo-yos was another one we were into.
The slime craze hit big. There are all kinds of stuff. And of course the craze is like flipping the bottle, like the 20-ounce bottle and getting it to land. Yeah, I'm talking about this is like middle school kids of today. There's different craze every year. Yeah. Maybe I was just oblivious to the crazes too, because I was just sort of friendless until I got to high school. So
I think it just reminded me when I I don't know if you know who the Smothers Brothers are.
Yeah,
they had a TV show in the 90s or late 80s. They've had many TV shows.
I was going to say their big one was in the 60s when they got canceled over Vietnam.
One of the Smothers Brothers is a big yo-yo guy. He's a massive yo-yo guy.
Tommy Smothers.
Tommy. And so that they started doing that stuff on the show when I was in middle school, and so everyone had a yo-yo. So I guess we were all watching the Smothers Brothers. That's the stupidest as that is.
Yeah. I remember that there was actually, I think, a song. I remember there was a thing that he did. It was called "You're Entering the Land of Yo."
Yo Man. He was the Yo Man.
Yeah. And there was all kinds of wacky nonsense with that. Ravi also asks, did you use IRC?
Oh yeah. I mean, I knew people that were into it a lot more than I was, because to me, see, the thing is, there was a time when RC and news groups, that's all you had. Those kind of old school message basey, and RC was like, whoa, real time chat, ooh, But like, to me, like, I had that already on BBS's back in the day, so I was just like, eh. And the interface, I thought MIRC and RC it sucked. So most of the time, much like everything in my young life, the only thing that really drove me to go there at the time was piracy. Piracy on news groups, piracy on the IRC, and IRC news group, or IRC piracy sucked. I mean, you could do it. It was prevalent. It was there, but it was so annoying to use. And Newsgroup was much easier. But yeah, I did go there. I know some people that were really into it because they were in like certain niche groups that would chat about stuff. But I was not. I was just a tourist. I would come in occasionally, see what was going on in the league, but mostly was there for the piracy. What about you?
Yeah, I was into IRC pretty briefly, because I think there was a time where you had Instant Messenger was like the first thing, the first sort of like internet chat that I did, because everybody was on AOL. But then I started to know people that were in college, and then they had internet through college, and so they were on IRC, and so I used IRC to talk to them. But then there was a thing where you could get a desktop client that was like AIM, but it had all the services on it. And then everybody just shifted
Trillion,
over.
I believe.
Trillion, that was the one for Windows, and then I was a Mac user at the time, and so I used something called Adium. But then I just switched over to that, and I never really went back to IRC. Although I've often thought that if Discord ever does anything dumb, IRC is always IRC will be there for us, so we can keep our community afloat.
It's funny that all these services, and I'm gonna. Listen, I like Discord. Don't get me wrong, but it's going the exact same way they always do. They keep piling crap in there. They keep piling crap in. Our ICQ did it. The same thing. Winamp. All these things. They always do it.
I'm sorry. I want to go back, because everything that I just described about IRC, I realize now I was talking about ICQ. I don't know that I've ever used IRC before, so I take it all back.
There you go.
I'm sorry.
Do you remember your ICQ number now that they're gone?
No. God, no.
1377828. I still know, and I don't remember anything. So there you go.
All right. We move on. Andy Craig asks, which video games stand out with the wackiest workplace safety violations? Have you ever worked anywhere like that? Any henchmen roaming a factory where you must leap over vats of molten lava?
It's funny. It's a good question for me, because I don't know if you've worked in a factory setting, Bo. Have you ever worked in a factory?
No, never.
So I've worked at a couple, and the one that comes to mind is, of course, the IBM factory in Lexington, which is just you wouldn't believe how epically expansive this thing is. It goes on forever. It's building after building. They're all joined together, and I did see plenty of OSHA failures. I mean, every sort of nefarious thing you could think of went on these factories: drinking, drug use, meetups in the bathrooms. I mean, the thing is, as IBM slowly closed down their various enterprises there, these places just became abandoned. You can still get to them. They'd sort of have a couple lights on, but you could go back, and I remember watching people all the time race up and down and race each other on the forklifts and the box movers. I remember people getting up on the they used to make the Selectric typewriters. They had these lines with these wheels on them, like these rollers. People would get on that and surf around and stuff on those things. I mean, I've seen all sorts of crazy stuff. Now, there's no molten lava, but there would be stuff like there'd be sharp objects. There'd be we had a solder pod in the cell. I've seen people run into that and knock solder on themselves. I've seen people try to leap over the solder. We had a solder. We had a post solder area where you would where cards would go. It's a solder machine. Cards would go through a conveyor belt and go through it, and they'd go to the solder machine and come out. There'd be a conveyor belt where people would cut them up. I've seen people try to jump over that, which is not good. They made it, but they killed themselves. The dumb stuff. And sometimes because they were drunk. I've seen people take these, do idiotic. I'll give you an example of something real stupid that happened. You'd never do this in a million years now, okay? Because I did it. I was really into Lucha Libre when I worked at IBM. So me and Rich, I brought in a couple luchador masks. And as we were leaving one night, we were in our full garb. We both put on the luchador mask and just walked out. And we just thought it was amusing, but people thought there was a terrorist hold up. They didn't know what Lucha Libre was. They didn't know who La Parka was, and so I found out years later, people were freaking out and calling security and stuff, because they thought a couple armed gunmen were walking around because we just had a guy commit suicide in his office like a month or two before. So people were edgy.
Yeah.
So the more people you pile into a ton of corporate space like that, you get all sorts of shenanigans. So, yeah, I have seen plenty of that. I could probably think about a million other things I've seen that happen there. Super dangerous. I've seen plenty of people get hurt, on the job. I mean, lots of people falling down, getting sick, poisoning themselves. I saw a chick eat a bunch of those super hot death peppers one time at work. She was on the ground writhing and puking, and that's got nothing to do with it. It's like, why did you do that here? What were you thinking? I don't know.
You were always on the overnight shift, right?
Yeah, that was another problem because those people that's the reject shift, the weekend overnights. And so, and in the parking lot, oh man. It was, it was madness. People out there drag racing. I always wanted to get a good parking spot. So I'm sure I've mentioned this, but I used to carry a couple road cones that we stole from Kings Island in the back of the car. And so when I left work the night before, I would put the cones in the parking spot I wanted. So no one would park there. And I'd just come back the next day, put them back in the trunk. They didn't like that. That didn't get over. Eventually caught me, but
I can't beat that answer, so we're going to move on. Pajako6502 writes, with easy access to arcade emulation and arcade ports to home systems, a pointless exercise or a great opportunity to see what's really possible in the right hands. I'll take this one first. The guys, Coco community, you need to stop. You've proven your point that you can do Pac-Man, you can do Defender. You're not impressing anybody with your transcodes. Get off the bus.
Yeah, but they're transcoding everything everywhere now. I don't agree with that. Get back on the bus. Drive that bus as fast as possible. Look at the stuff that is going on the Amiga right now. There's all sorts of great transcodes or partial transcodes getting brought over. I think it's glorious. I think if I heard the question right, he's asking, is there a point to doing it? Is that basically?
Yeah, if you can load up Galaga on MAME and play it 100% perfect, why do you need to load up Galaga on the Amiga and play it 98% perfect?
Well, by the way, they've just released a Galaga for the Amiga.
That's why I said that. Yeah.
So, okay, I'm gonna go back to something I've said before. Remember when I owned the Juke Box, and I realized that
you were Juke Box Zero.
Oh, no, I was a Juke Box Zero because I couldn't fix it. And I realized that the little thing in my pocket that was like as big as a little ginger chin like this could play like 50 billion times more stuff than the jukebox. And I felt sort of dumb. Like, why do I want this? The problem with this hobby is it makes you a moron. You can't help it. Look at all this crap I got behind me. I got a Misters and TIs and all this crap. I mean, I could play all that crap on a little box, that's like yay big. If I wanted to, it'd play everything. So part of it is that is just straight up. There's a sickness. There's a disease that people get. It's a madness. Okay, so there's that. And in the future, I hate to tell this to you, but I mean, I'm having to cut a grist with it too. In the future, where you could they'll be to take like just like we can now, take a Pi or whatever the next. I mean, because we're getting to the point now where you're going to have an ultra machine that's the size of your fist. I think this hobby of ours is going to go bye-bye, okay? Because the kids now don't care, all right? There's a few that care, but, like, most people aren't going to give it two craps about this stuff. It's going to go away.
That's why I'm selling everything now.
But that sounds negative, so here's the positive side. There are people that enjoy their original hardware. All right, they're older people usually, but not always, and they like having like
best. They're 87 years old.
Not just Coco and me. I was reading some comments under a video that was posted about. I think maybe it was Rabbi's show, but it could have been one of the user meetings. I can't remember, but they were talking about how like, oh man, look at all these. Look, there's so many computers there, and some of them are the emulated trash.
Oh, yeah, that guy's an idiot. So here's I hate him.
Well, no, but I don't remember who it was. But the point of this is this.
Zofar. Freaking Zofar.
The point of it is, some people are hardcore, right? And that's what they want. They want to load stuff up on tape. They want to do things the hard way. They want to do stuff, which is fine. It's just it's whatever makes you happy. but so I guess the answer to that question is it depends on who you ask. To someone like yourself,
they're asking you. They're asking. This is Ask the Amigos.
I know, but I'm just saying it's a difficult question. So my answer will be yes, they are necessary.
Okay, there you go.
Because it makes some people happy, including me.
I don't think it's a pointless exercise. I think it's a great exercise to learn. Absolutely. Yeah. And if you can learn while you're making something for other people that they enjoy, then that's great.
Yeah.
What I would really like to see is taking that knowledge and then making something even better with it. So, it's sort of like there was the Final Fight port. And what would be great is if they used all that knowledge and made a whole bunch of new Final Fight levels and improved on the original game some, and then put that out on the
Remember,
Amiga
they put the chick in there, so that's something.
Yeah,
Stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree with you, Boat.
David Hearn Ryder asks, do you think you could fall in love with an AI chatbot?
No. Absolutely not. Have you seen what the AIs are saying? I've already got one crazy person in my life. I don't need another one. No, I know. I'm not. Now, if it was an actual bot, let's say if he didn't say chat bot and just said AI bot, like a robot, that is a bridge we haven't traveled yet. Because if you could simulate, it's like the old Blade Runner. If you could simulate a human to the degree where you don't notice, it's amazing how quickly humans will adapt to an artificial thing.
Yeah,
and I think that's one area where we'll adapt quite easily. So that would be a whole different ball game. But it's just an AI chat bar where I'm like, "Hey, baby," and somebody's like, "How was your day?" I'm like, "What? What are we doing?" I could play Zork, or something like that. It's what it'd be like for me. So no.
For me, I don't think it's possible, but I do think that there are people out there that that would be possible for, even if it's just a voice. I think the voice is necessary, though. I think it's a much harder ask to fall in love with something that you're typing to and you get words on the screen back. But once you add a voice to it, and then you make it like ChatGPT is now, where you can just set it up on your phone and you can talk to it like a person, where there's barely any break in the conversation at all. I can see how lonely people that feel like don't have a chance with anybody else could form a really strong emotional bond to a chatbot like that.
I mean, it's already happening. I see, particularly in places like Japan, where there's so many people that are lonely, and they basically have zero shot over there, but just because the way their society has gotten real tough. But of course, I love reading Drudge. I always have, because it's so wacky, and that's my go-to source of crazy robotic marriages. And so there are people that have they've married dolls and stuffed animals and AIs and computer generated avatars. That's already happened. So I mean, and I'm sure it's not just Japan, but I mean, that's already happening. I have no doubt that there's a section of people already that are in love with their, and they make it so they'll text you on your phone and stuff during the day. I mean, it makes it pretty realistic. So there you go.
Yeah. Lobsterminator asks, do you think you could fall in love with Amigos Bot 3000?
What do you think?
I already have.
I mean,
David Hearn Ryder asks, what is your latest buy on itch, GOG, or Steam, and would you recommend it?
I think the last stuff I bought would be on itch, and it was all the JOTD. I think all the various. It's funny, we just talked about all the various arcade ports where they've got that, pay a couple bucks to download stuff off itch. I love that. We both love it. We're both big fans of that. And so that's the last stuff I bought, and it was great. I'd do it again. I haven't bought anything off Steam for a while. I haven't been around that much since it's summertime. I haven't been around that much to do that kind of stuff. But I think that's the last stuff I bought. But yeah, I never buy anything off good old games ever.
I don't even know what that is, to be honest with you.
Well, it used to be a place where you could just get all kinds of free stuff, but then It's funny that I was just watching This Week in Retro. They were talking about how they were talking about ExoDOS and how great it is, but how they should start charging for various elements of that. And I'm going to strongly disagree with that because it's one big wad of piracy. You can't have it both ways. And so, Good Old Games is a place where you can download some games for free. But now some people, whoever owned the copy, whoever went and bought the stuff that used to be free to make a couple bucks, you could pay them a couple bucks. It's not like it's going to the guys that made the game, so I'm less interested in doing that.
Yeah. The last thing I bought on Steam or got on Steam, ironically, was the companion app for Mansions of Madness, the board game that we played on my birthday.
Yeah, that was great. You didn't have to pay for that, did you?
No.
Oh, yeah.
And I do wholeheartedly recommend Mansions of Madness. I love board games that approach the feeling of playing a role-playing game, except you don't have to have a DM. And so Mansions of Madness does a pretty good job at that. And it's all because the app really takes a lot of the fiddliness that would normally be involved away from the equation.
That game got over. I had the boys, while you were out of town, me and the boys and Luke, we all went up to the camp and played board games, and we were playing sort of surrogates of that game, but that's the game we were talking about. That game made a big impression on every single guy.
When I finally get up to the cabin, I'll bring it with me. Do you have a way to display the TV
we got
up there?
Yep,
right?
it's all good to go. Yep.
Okay, sounds good, man. Is to Scooby asks, if you woke up as a minor deity in a fantasy world with hundreds of gods, what would your specific domain be?
Go ahead, Boat.
Well, there. On the one hand, I want to pick something that I'm good at, so I would be like the god of band directors or something like that. But that sounds lame and dumb, so I don't want to be that. I want to be something slightly cooler, like, I'd want to be the patron saint of lost hair. People would.
That's not marginally cooler. That's far less cool.
Offer up their prayers to me when they first noticed their receding hairline, and then I benevolently, add a few more years back on there.
Do you lament the loss of the hair?
Well, I don't lament the loss of my hair because my hair sucked. But I
mean, it didn't always suck
in general. Yeah. But
do you lament the good hair you had?
I do. I wish I still had hair. I would style it. I would grow it out. I would do all kinds of great things with it.
I'm just gonna say I would like to be. And this is on a bit on the nose, but I would like to be the patron saint of feasting. I'd be down with that.
One. That's a good one.
And possibly the joyous patron saint of friendly fighting, friendly tussling.
Yeah.
The lord of feasting and tussling. Because you have to tussle after dinner, like Vikings.
I like it. I like it a lot. Dave Zilli asks, when was the last time Aaron referred to Boat as John?
I'm sure it was during something very serious. Because
you called me John at some point. I think it might have been during Boat Fest or something like that. And I was at first I thought you were talking to somebody else, but then I realized it could only be me, and it was weird. I felt weird about it.
I usually have to call you Boat or John, Boat of Carshall. I don't usually just refer to you as John. For the longest time, I didn't know what your first name was. So if you go back in the archives for like years, I never called you that because I didn't know your name was.
And we also have a John in our friend group in John Marshall. So this keeps things from getting confusing, having the two names.
But that's not why we do it.
No. Aaron, there's no nickname for Aaron. Aaron does have a nickname, Amigo Aaron. But did you ever have a nickname when you were a kid, like Pops or?
Well, I did. I'm not going to say it here because I'm for fear that it would get circulating again. But I did have one, back in the day.
What do you wish your nickname was?
I'm happy just being called the Devil Bunny. I always was.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, no one refers to me as that anymore. But it used to be my handle, and so everyone called me that. And most people didn't know my real name, because I hadn't been doxxed yet. I was totally fine with that for years and years. But otherwise, Amigo Aaron, I just came up with that one day. I'm not just to add a little. It's just the same thing with the Brent. I just I think because I couldn't do a proper intro, which is one singular name.
Mhm,
You know, it's just like you were talking about John Marshall. Like we never just call him John, ever.
No.
It's always John Marshall, fully.
Mhm.
You know, it's
Yeah.
never just John. You know, so when it comes to nicknames, I think one of the main reasons that I don't have a good one is because I'm usually the one that gives out the nicknames.
That's true.
So that's sort of, and I don't. Again, it's a memory aid. That's almost
There
always.
you go. This is another minor deity role for you.
Yeah,
Patron
the
Saint
Lord of
nicknames.
nicknames, of memory aids. Yeah.
David Hearn Ryder asks, "Is there a game that drove you to drink?" I'll answer first. No, because when I get even slightly a little bit frustrated with the game, I turn it off and play something else or leave the room. I'm not one of these people that will like sit there and try to beat a certain thing. Because, I mean, life's just too short. I don't have the patience for that.
Yeah. Boy, I'm not like you at all. In fact, man, I can't tell you the amount. EQ and COH both. They're like those. If you go back, there's no way to watch them now because we didn't record them. But if you went back and watched any of the old TeamSpeak regular stuff, I mean. I would just be hammered, and we all were, week after week after week, playing on that because it was great. That's what I did for fun. You know, I was like, it's like that was my fun night. Get a bunch of booze and play that game with the boys, play whatever we were playing. Mm-hmm. You know, but before that, you know, anything that you're, especially when you're talking to your buddies, it's online, it's real easy to kick a few back, you know. And then, of course, me and you used to drink during the show a lot.
Yeah. There have been games on the podcast that drove me to drink. That's for sure.
Someone brought up Carrier Command the other day, and I was thinking, because I'm pretty sure that's the episode we had that big fight, and I know, I mean, and we had both been hitting it. Like and this was a horrible. This show. That's if anyone asked how did the hell has the show matured, that would be the one thing I'd say. Like, we stopped for the most part. Every once in a while you relapse, but I know I quit. I quit, especially because I had to go do the controls. Back in those days, I didn't have to do the controls, so I just sat there and get. I was more than happy to drink your booze. I was like, that's great.
I didn't have to do the controls either. It worked out great.
Good point.
Ravi asks, are you living in the 90s?
Oh God, no. Jeez. The 90s sucked. I didn't. The 90s don't have, you know, every era has like, you say, hey, here's what happened then. The 90s doesn't really have that. It's just nothing happened. I never liked it. In the late 80s, I mean, there was a dead zone between, say, I usually say the cutoff is 85, and then I'd say about 2008, I felt like it came back around, but there was a 18-year, 20-year dead zone right there that I just didn't think much was going on, you know, frankly. What about you?
I don't think that I'm living in the 90s, but most of my good memories come from the 90s because, again, this is a year that I was, you know, between 15 and 20 years old. So,
yeah.
And I think the big thing about the 90s is that it's the when, you know, it was the advent of mass adoption of the internet. So this is a time, you know, I'm sort of the last group of people that had some sort of a childhood where the internet was not prevalent. And so, you know, that's a big deal.
I did party a lot, up from say 89 to 2000. So I will say that was the era of me going out to bars and drinking and running around and getting in trouble. So that I will say that was that. Maybe that's why I don't have a very good recollection. I mean, I had a good time. I guess that's good. But I'm not living there now.
Was?
What's that?
Was that the foam garage party?
Foam garage party would have been right before. That was pretty much the death knell. You know, of that. But no, I mean, literally, I can't get into this stuff, but I was not the same person you see before me. I mean, when I moved back to West Virginia, I was gobsmacked because there was nothing going on. And it was a tough adjustment for me because, I mean, we were living pretty hard, you know, back in those days. So, but you know, I'm older now, so it's easier, but it's also sort of depressing now think about it.
What is the worst film you have ever seen at the cinema?
Oh boy, you want to try that one out?
I know exactly. I've really only seen one film. I've walked out of a lot of bad movies, so I don't count those.
Yeah.
But the movie that I stayed for the whole thing that was the worst movie was I think it was the 1998 Godzilla movie with Matthew Broderick.
Oh man,
That was
that was
awful.
a dud.
That was
Oh
awful.
boy.
Yeah.
Listen, you did the right thing. I don't know if I've ever walked down a film. There's a couple. And this isn't the worst movie I've ever seen, but it was so disappointing. Was that Simpsons movie? That thing sucked. I wanted to get up and leave, and that was horrible. But man, I've seen a lot of duds in the theater. I'm one of the people on Earth that saw Troll 2 in the theater. So, but I mean,
That's something you can hang your hat on.
No, I saw Troll 1 in the theater. My bad. But I've seen a lot of duds. I'll tell you, the movie about the haunted doll that Tree took me to, that one was really bad. I can't remember what the haunted doll.
What was so bad about that? I mean, how can
the
you go wrong with haunted
didn't
doll?
do anything. It never moved. It never blinked. It didn't kill anybody. It was just a doll. At the end of that movie, they just focus in. This music's playing, and the doll's in the basement. It focuses right into the doll, and I'm like, man, this last frame, that doll's gonna move or blink or dance. Nothing happened. It just went off. So that one was really bad. I can't remember the name of it. Somebody will know. It's that stupid haunted doll movie, and it's not one of the good ones. Like, it's not like a Magic or something. This just sucked. So that one I would say is near the top of the list. There's been some that scared the crap out of me, but I wouldn't say they were bad films. So.
Jocko writes, they're going to put digitized versions of you in Mortal Kombat. What is your character name and what is your finishing move?
Oh, if it's me, I'd want it to be my name.
Amigo Aaron.
Yeah. You know. What about you? You'd want to be Boat, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think
what's your finisher, Boat? I know I've got a good one for you.
Oh, it's where I inflate the inflatable boat that I got on Amazon. And then I put the mast. I just stab it right through the heart of my opponent.
See, for you, I would like to see you, like, once the guy's like, finish him, you start marching in place, and your band uniform comes on, and you take the trombone and go, and you cut his head off with the thing.
That's not bad either. I've got multiple finishing moves.
I'd like to see that. For me, oh gosh, I'll tell you what, and this is topical. And I can't get into this right now, but I'm going to talk about it tomorrow night on the disaster stream. But it would involve my weapon in the game would be the glaive. You know, so it'd be something with the glaive. You chopping a guy up with the glaive, sticking it in his head, something like that. Maybe growing up with the glaive. You know, really hosing a sucker. That's what I would do. I'd have to make a deal with the Kroll people for that one, but I think I could pull it off. It's not like that license is in demand.
Well, yeah, that's true. Mortal Kombat Cross Kroll. Where is it at? Yeah. Pixels of Dawn asks, with Boat back from his adventures in the UK, what's the best and worst thing about traveling, both locally and further afield? I think the best thing about traveling abroad is that I am curious about everything. And so whatever happens, I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. Why do you do it like that? What's the deal with this thing? I turned to Jerry Seinfeld, and I just love talking to people about what they do and what all this stuff is. So I can go someplace that is totally nondescript and still amuse myself by just looking at everything and wondering about stuff. And of course, you know, trips are made with the people that you meet. It's all about, and I was just so lucky this past trip that instead of putting me in a hotel, Ravi put me in the Airbnb with Stu and Tony. And it's just like, we spent like 8 hours like talking, like over the course of the weekend, either late at night in the Airbnb or just out and about or whatever. And it was just so cool to just sit there and talk to those guys. So just the same thing when I went to the UK in November, just Pajako and Pix taking a week off work and just driving me around and going to all these places that I always wanted to see and talking to them the whole time. I mean, it's incredible. The worst thing about traveling, and I hate to do this, I hate to bury. I hate to bury him. But, you know, you see a lot of things that you just don't understand, and you see a lot of things that make you mad, you know. And there's nothing that makes me just want to bust out, and I'm proud to be an American. Like when I see the light switch on the outside of the restroom.
That's it? That
Hate
makes
it.
you see Lee Greenwood?
You go in the restroom. I don't know what you do when you go in the restroom, but the first thing I do is shut the door.
I just blindly grope around.
Yeah, you shut the door and then you blindly grope around for the switch. Guess what, buddy? The switch ain't in there, and maybe you've already got your pants down. Ooh.
The problem with that is if, like, you're in the can, you're well in, you're stuck in, as they say, and then some smarty pants just rolls in and it's like, grip, because they don't know what's going on. They just give you the full business. Like, that is sort of odd. Maybe they're more trusting in other countries. Is that a Britain thing, or was it like that down in?
No. It's every other country. It's Thailand. It's Korea. It's every place I've been in the EU. Everywhere except for here.
I thought you were going to bury the Earth-wide airplane computer system that continuously screws you everywhere you go. I mean, they don't want. Sometimes they don't want you to go home, and sometimes they don't want you to leave. Anyway, it goes.
It is very strange how the last 2 worldwide shutdowns have coincided with my travel days.
It's amazing.
If you want a tip, don't travel when I travel.
Take a boat.
Yeah, take a boat. How about you? What's your favorite thing when you go on a trip? What's your favorite and least favorite things?
I go on so few trips. I mean,
you took the boy to Corbin.
Yeah, and I say that mockingly as you come back from like a super resort, but no, that don't even count. I mean, in all honesty, the last time I went on a trip, a prolonged stay somewhere that wasn't like, I mean, I guess Cocoa Fest would be up there, but I mean, like, we spent a week at the beach like 15 years ago or something like that. But I mean, listen, I don't travel that much. The expense is part of it that always gets me. I mean, which is why I don't travel that much. I've got this mental block. It's bad. And the mental block is every cent that I spend going somewhere could be money I don't spend there and could spend it in a more meaningful way here.
Sure.
And so it's hard for me and the thing is, I'm the kind of person that doesn't necessarily need to go anywhere to have a good time. It's great for me, but for, like, say, the kid, I feel like I was shortchanging him. When he was young, we took him everywhere, but it was always stuff in the state, and so he hasn't been to Disney World. He hasn't been to, the beach that much. He hasn't been, there's a lot of places that haven't taken him. We took him when he was younger, but didn't remember it. We took him to SeaWorld, and we took him to the beach. We took all this places. So I feel like part of me, I feel bad about it. And plus, my job, it's a little bit harder for me to get away for a long time than it is for some people because I've got certain duties that I have to come, and if I don't do them, then my partner has to be stuck with them. I always feel bad doing that to him.
Yeah.
But when it comes to travel, it's usually it's always more expensive, and it irritates me, and also the fleecing. When you go, like, for example, you go to Vegas, somewhere like that, where they just hold you over the coals for every cent. They drain every cent they can of you, and they hold you up by the legs and shake you until all the money comes out. It irritates me. So I prefer to go places that aren't necessarily touristy and just relax there, but that's just me. I've never gotten to do that. I mean, you've traveled more in the last month than I've ever traveled my whole life. I mean, if you put it in perspective. So,
well, you're not wrong about the whole money thing. I can't think about it because it just makes me want to die when I think about the money that you spend when you go anywhere.
Yeah.
But on the upside, you weigh the pros and the cons, but I definitely see where you're coming from.
I would love to go to the UK, and one of these days, after the boys in college or whatever, and if people over there will still talk to me, I would love to visit friends over there and just hang out, sort of like when they come here to Boat Fest. That's sort of what I want to do. Just kind of want to. I don't even have to go to an event. I just like to go and just see people. I mean, I love history stuff. I would love to go and see all the stuff I've read about, But I mean, eventually, I'll get to do it.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of people over there that would love to see you. So, Jocko asks, in an alternate reality, the main 8-bit computer you grew up with as a kid didn't exist. Which one do you think you would have instead? Do I need to read that again? Did you get that?
No, I got it. Okay. So the Coco's not there. What else would I have had? Well, everyone I knew. That's not true. Because I really had, so in terms of 8-bit computers, I knew one of my buddies had a TI. The whole in fact, two of them had TIs. Several of my good friends, had Commodore 64s. So really, it would probably have been one of those two, and it would probably, since my mom was close to the mom that had the TI, it would probably have been a TI, because I know they were trying to push the TI, but we had a Coco already, and I didn't think much of the TI at the time. I have changed my attitude since I got one and played with one. They're a better machine than I gave it credit for. But at the time, we were happy with the Coco. But it probably would have been TI if I'm honest. If it was just like what would have happened. If I could have my druthers and just have any 8-bit system, it'd probably be something like the MSX would be a good choice, because I think it's got a good it's a good it's a nice cross section of various types of machine. I've grown quite fond of the MSX. So of course the Spectys is already there, is always there as well, or the Atari. But I did know people that had the Atari as their computer too, so that would have been in the running. So I may have had an Atari like you did, Bode. What about you?
I've thought about this. I had a glance at this question when it came up, and I thought about it. And I really think that because my dad, he would have gotten our first computer, almost certainly would have been a computer that he would have gotten from somebody else. He was not a big believer in buying new if he could get a good deal secondhand. And so when I think about the machines that people probably had bought in the late 70s into the early 80s, like the 1200 XL manufactured in 1981, that people bought for business, but then were supplanted by the IBM PC. That combined with the emphasis on education, I think that it probably would have been an Apple II. I think I could see him buying an Apple II that somebody bought for VisiCalc that was working at Carbide in 78 or 79.
Yeah.
Then he got a PC, doesn't need the Apple II anymore. Dad swoops in and gets it.
It's funny, I didn't know anyone that owned an Apple II that I remember. And I think one of the reasons was it was just those things were expensive.
Yeah.
And
crazy.
the Ataris and the TIs. I mean, the TIs started out sort of expensive, but got cheap real quick. Real. I mean, because they were and it's the same thing with the CC. And I don't think I knew anyone that had a VIC either. That's another one I didn't see that much. But the Atari and the Coco and the C64, those were inexpensive. And so, I mean, like I said, when it comes to the Apple, that's one none of my buddies had one of those, so that wouldn't even be on my list. But yeah, I could see that absolutely.
And finally, our final question for this month's Ask the Amigos is, do you prefer salty snacks or sugary snacks?
Yes, I think is the answer. I feel like we got this one before. And what do you think? You have a thought on this one?
Yeah, I do. I definitely prefer a salty over sugary. Like if you offer me the choice of like a bowl of M&Ms or a bowl of tater tots, I'm going to go for the tots every time.
I'm not that. I like tater tots. Don't get me wrong, but I don't consider tater tots. I mean, what was the question? Was it? I thought it was junk. I thought it was like candy.
Salty snacks or sugary snacks.
I guess tater tots are a snack. Now think about it.
They're definitely not a major food group. That's for sure.
Here at my house, they're a course. But I would be the sweet. I've got a real sweet tooth, obviously, big fat guy. But I always have. I mean, as long as I remember when I was a little kid, I'd get something I would get a chair and stand up on the chair and climb up on top of the oven. And on top of the oven in the cab that I couldn't reach is where Mom would put the icing she would use on cakes. And I would get boy, I'm really opening a window here, but I would scurry up there, I'd risk my life to get up there, and then I would try to hide the fact that I'd eaten some of that icing very cleverly, but that didn't work because I had to unseal it to eat it,
Oh boy, yeah.
But so I mean, I've always been like that. I just love sweet stuff. I mean, I love it, and it's it's cost me, it's cost me in every conceivable way. But yeah.
Well, that's going to do it for this week's or this month's round of questions. As always, if you are a member of our Discord community, which you can get to by going to patreon.com/Amigos podcast, you can post us a question and we will answer it next month. Thanks as always for watching and or listening. We will see you next time. And until then, adios.